for
Yeah,
past few
Siri,
sessions.
yeah, Siri has not been attending. Don't know what happened. Maybe shift or something like that.
Okay, maybe Terence can kick off.
Thank you, Monday. And good evening, everyone. Welcome to the MSBS Weekly Guided Meditation by Phra Goh. Today is the 28th of September 2021. We are very grateful to have with us Bhante Adhibalo, known as Phra Goh. Bhante was ordained into the Theravada tradition of Thai Dhamma sect, Santi Forest Monastery, Johor, Malaysia in 2008. He spent the 5 Rains Retreat and various forest monastery in Malaysia and Thailand. Currently the religious advisor to Buddhist Youth Network in Singapore and has been conducting our weekly Tuesday guided meditation since July 2020. We are continuing the topic on how to overcome greed, hatred, and delusion, and maybe we'll continue a new sutta suggested by Peijun. Bhante will be leading to the homage to the Buddha and taking of 5 precepts for Buddhists. Now let us compose our minds for palms together and welcome Bhante. Over to you, Bhante.
Okay, thank you, Terence, for the intro. So we shall start with the opening chanting here. Homage. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. The 3 refuges. Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Saṅghāṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Dutiyampi Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Dutiyampi Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Dutiyampi Saṅghāṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Saṅghāṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. 5 precepts. Pāṇātipada vīramani sikkhapada samadhiyami. Adinādāna vīramani sikkhapada samadhiyami. Kāmesu miccācāra vīramani sikkhapada samadhiyami. Musavāda vīramani sikkhapada samadhiyami. Suramēraya majjapamādātāna vīramani sikkhapada samadhiyami. Sadhu, sadhu. All right. Good evening, everyone, and we might be covering the last few segments of this Sabbasava Sutta at the ending of whole fermentations. That's the translation by Ajahn Jeffrey. And we're continuing basically all the talks on overcoming greed, hatred, and delusion. So we'll just keep adding more titles along the way whenever people suggest. So maybe Terence can give a quick move on to the next few slides. So the main theme is always Four Noble Truths. So we're talking about the concept of self or non-self. Next. Yeah, so we'll cover this more in the next topic, which is on the teaching on non-self. So even the concept of non-self, if you hold on to it, can be a delusion. So for those who believe there is a self, strongly believe there is self, the Buddha will teach non-self. And for those who believe there's no self, then the Buddha will teach something to sort of reduce that clinging. All right, so again, all these are positions and perceptions. Okay, we move on. So the fundamentals, the Four Noble Truths, whatever views you cling on to, it will cause stress, it will cause suffering. Right? And the origination of stress is this clinging, is this greed or hatred to any views, any opinions, anything, any concept. And the cessation, right, it can be done, you can let go of this stress or this clinging, and the way leading to this cessation in our meditation routine, we always repeat, have thoughts of loving kindness, thoughts of impermanence. So these are the direct antidote to greed and hatred, which is the cause of this suffering. All right, so this is the standard procedure. Whenever you face any stress, any tension, you can use this to overcome the stress. All right, then we move on. And again, the stress can manifest in whatever context. So concepts and ideas come from thinking. That is the intellect, consciousness. When we come in contact with ideas, and when we come in contact with the eyes, the forms, right, the visions, pictures, diagrams, shapes, we also have certain ideas, whether we like it, don't like it, same hearing, smelling, tasting, and so on. Right, so all these, all the reflections that are used to reduce clinging to all the sense bases can be called restraint. So not just loving kindness or impermanence, there's a whole list of reflections. So non-self can be one of them. Okay, next. So things like gratitude and contentment. So these are more specific scenarios. Yeah. So when we talk about Four Noble Truths and Six Sense Bases, these are the general strategy, universal strategies, but when it comes to specific items, specific scenarios like your clothing. Are you contented with your clothing? Right. So when we come in contact with clothing, it can be our touch, can be our sense of sight, right? And we can develop either greed or hatred to the clothing. So with proper reflection, we can have restraint to these items we use. So clothing, we can have contentment. Next. Yeah, so same with food, proper reflection, being contentment. Next. Same with shelter, right? Have gratitude to your shelter. Next. Medicine, same. Next. Okay, then next, this one is unpleasant sensations in whatever context. Can be criticism, can be physical unpleasantness, right? Harsh weather and so on. We try to tolerate and be patient. So proper reflection. Okay, next. Things to avoid getting in trouble, avoid harming yourself, getting hurt, so that can continue with your practice. So some situations, if let's say you go to these dangerous places and you get severely wounded, very hard to tolerate. Very hard to tolerate. So avoid the first place. All right, okay, next. Okay, then intolerance is to evil states of mind. We should be intolerant to that. Greed, hatred, delusion. We should try to overcome that part of right effort. Next. Okay, so the eventual one, part of the sutta, and often repeated many times. We talk about the Maha Satipatthana Sutta. It talks about these 7 factors of enlightenment. When we talk about breath meditation, Anapanasati Sutta, there's also this mention of these 7 factors of enlightenment. And when we talk about the Mettan Sutta on the 4 Brahma Viharas, there's also mention of these 7 factors of enlightenment. Right? We also covered these 37 Bojjhangas. So in short, these 7 factors of awakening, these 7 points, are the symptoms when a person goes through this cessation of suffering, the Third Noble Truth. When we face stress, when we have suffering, when we have tension, right? The part of letting go, how do you know you let go? All right, so that's the issue. So these are the symptoms. 7 factors of awakening is the sign that you're on the right track. A lot of people can relieve stress in the mundane way. You face stress, go for a walk. Yeah, go and do something else and go and enjoy with your hobby. And they think they relieve stress, right? Sometimes their hobbies bring them pleasure, right? And we also have rapture as a factor of awakening. So when you go for your shopping, watch your movies, you also have pleasure, right? So that is not the factor of awakening. So what we are trying to do is when a person reduces craving, it will give you a different kind of pleasure. So I'm going to go through the 7 again very quickly. The first factor is dependent on mindfulness. Reflecting appropriately develops mindfulness or right mindfulness as a factor of awakening. So this is the first factor, dependent on seclusion. It means you must restrain your senses. Yeah, whatever you see, hear, smell, think, taste, touch must have this seclusion of these senses. It's not to totally avoid, don't see, don't hear, not that kind of seclusion. Yeah, when you see, hear, smell, think, taste, and touch, there is appropriate reflection to reduce this clinging. So this is right mindfulness. And again, to repeat, this right mindfulness is mindful of impermanence, be it your body, feeling, mind, and the Dharma. So this is the first factor. Second factor, analysis of qualities as a factor for awakening. Investigate the Dharma. So you can investigate the nature of impermanence, investigate the nature of non-self, investigate the nature of suffering. Right? We talk about 3 universal characteristics. So this is investigation. And if you are persistent, there's a third factor. If you're persistent with your investigation and mindfulness, you need these 3 as a cause, as the foundation, and the next 4 things will happen. Once you have this persistence or effort in your mindfulness and in your investigation. So this effort of persistence is basically consistency. So that's why in meditation I always ask you, keep repeating, keep repeating. You need to have persistence. It's not just 1 second. Okay, this thing is impermanent. Then the mind back to square one. No. Once your mind back to square one, it will naturally cling. And the nature of the mind, untrained mind, habitual mind, is to cling, have greed and attachment to all the sense contact, i.e. those are body and mind. So this persistent is interventionist kind of deliberate effort to apply the right thought to reduce or lower the clinging to all the sense contact. And once you do it correctly, when this greed or desire is reduced, then certain things will happen. So rapture as a factor of awakening will arise. So this rapture you cannot force it. You cannot force it to appear. It's a result. It's a result from the first three things. So rapture or this spiritual joy will appear, and after some time, again, this rapture is impermanent, and this we call it hormones or whatever, happy emotion will pass away, and it will develop serenity, calmness of mind, tranquility. And once the mind is tranquil, it will develop concentration. So this concentration is not the same as the jhanic kind of concentration. Yeah, it's not the same as jhana. So this is a vipassana kind of concentration, right? And eventually the mind will develop equanimity. Mind is unshaken. This is called equanimity, yeah? Not restless anymore. Okay, so these are the 7 factors, and it goes up and down depending on whether you cling or you uncling sense contact. So if let's say a person practices until rapture, serenity, and then they start to get distracted. You have work to do, you worry, and start to plan and cling, and mind goes back to square one. You need to start from scratch again. First factor. Likewise, if a person goes all the way to equanimity, then if they cling on to equanimity, they forget to reflect on impermanence, very easy. The mind will naturally cling on something again. Right, so one of the common mistakes or downfall in meditation, when a person experiences nice emotion in meditation, it can be rapture, it can be peace, it can be equanimity, or states of concentration. If they don't reflect appropriately, they will cling onto these emotions. And when they cling, they forget about the first 3 things. They forget about reflecting on impermanence. Oh, very nice. They just want to stay there forever. And because these last 4 factors are basically byproducts. For example, if the ancient days when they want to start a fire, they need to rub these dry sticks together to start a fire. And every time you want to maintain a fire, you need to bring more firewood and to put inside and to keep the fire burning. So clinging on to the last 4 things, any nice emotional states in meditation, is like holding on to the fire. You forget to feed the fire. You forgot to provide oxygen. You forget to fan and your firewood. You forgot to put in firewood. Forget to fuel, and the fire will die off. Right. So if a person would just cling on the nice emotional states, everything will be gone. And the mind will naturally lose the peace, and the mind start to get restless, scatter and cling on to your daydreaming thoughts. Yeah? So it's a continuous effort. We are not saying you should reject these peaceful states. We treat all these peaceful states as passing sceneries, passerby. We acknowledge them, but we carry on our journey. Focus on the traveling. Focus on the middle path. Focus on the right thoughts of impermanence. So this is the 7 factors. Right, so I'm going to just have this brief sharing and we move on to the next slide, Terence, if there is. All right, okay, so now we're going to talk about this non-self introduction to this Untitled Sutta. Since this is a new topic, maybe any questions at the moment first for the 7 factors before we move on? Okay, if not, then we move on, no questions. Okay, so this Untitled Sutta is the second official discourse by the Buddha that is recorded in our scripture. Of course, in between the first discourse, which is the Four Noble Truths, Eightfold Path, the Buddha had been giving personal guidance and instructions to the 5 monks all along the way, and probably towards the middle or end of the 3-month rains retreat, that the Buddha gave this discourse on non-self, and eventually the 5 monks reached enlightenment. So we are going to carry on. Yeah, so there's another name called Panchavagi Sutta, yeah, the 5 brethren. So I'm just going to read through. I have heard that on one occasion the Blessed One was staying at Varanasi in the game refuge at Satipatthana. There he addressed a group of 5 monks. Okay, next. Okay, so we are going to talk about the 5 aggregates again, 5 clinging aggregates. So this is part of investigation, part of right reflection. Okay, so the first one you mentioned, the form, the first aggregate, monks is not self. So this is Ajahn Jeffrey's translation. He used the terms not self. Some translators use non-self or no-self. So there's a big difference. Yeah, no-self is a nihilistic view. There's no self at all. There's self like denial. According to like some of the Thai monks or even Ajahn Jeffrey, he would say not self is referring to things that lend self to disease, things that subject to change is not self. But if there is something permanent, if a person managed to reflect and detach everything, the eventual product, which is nibbana or something permanent, that is the luminous mind. Yeah, that is, some people want to call whatever label you want to call it self, true self, ultimate self, whatever it is. So that is if you have reached that perfection. But before that, whatever label we use, there is still attachment. Okay, if form were the self, this form would not lend itself to disease. It would be possible to say, with regard to form, let this form be thus, let this form not be thus. Okay, so if in our contemplations we do the parts of the body, hair, nails, teeth, skin. So when we think if the hairs are truly self, then we can tell the hairs don't grow old, don't fall off. You have total control. That is, if it is truly self. If anything is not a control, can you call it self? So this one, let you have food for thought, yeah? Part of contemplation, part of investigation. Okay, so this is the logic or the analysis from the Buddha's point of view. Okay, next. But precisely because form is not self, form lends itself to disease, and it is not possible to say with regard to form, let this form be thus, let this form not be thus. Okay, so now the Buddha is coming from a top-down approach. That means from an enlightened perspective. It's like giving you the answer already. Okay, because it is not self, so that's why it is subject to change, subject to decay. Whatever you think that is self and is changing, that is wrong. So that is not self. So it's just like in your primary or secondary school, you do your math homework, you have the textbook, and at the back of the textbook are all the answers. So this is what the Buddha is trying to do now, is giving you the answers. So this is the answer, and this form is not self. And he's going to do the reverse engineering, he's telling you the process, how to do your working and how to get the answer. Okay, next. So the same thing, aside from form, your physical body, he also talks about feelings. He said feeling is not self. Right? Can you tell your feelings to be pleasant forever? If you have unpleasant feeling, can you just tell unpleasant feeling, go away? Don't even appear in the first place. Yeah, it can't, right? So no, therefore he said feeling is not self. So this is the answer he gave straight away. Next. How about perception? And perception means cognition. You recognize things, you perceive things. Right? Whatever you perceive, your memories, and all the labels and jargons you give, do they last? Can you hold on to your memories and your perceptions forever? Yeah, or your perceptions change all the time. Maybe one day you perceive a certain person in this way, and you read certain news and your perception may change. Or you meet a certain person, you interact with them and your perception of the person will change. So this is perception. Okay, next. Mental fabrications are not self. So mental fabrications, we talk about karmic formations or mental formations, they're the same thing. So every time we perceive a new thing, it is due to the arising mental fabrications, mental formations. When the thought is being constructed, then we perceive, we feel, we have feelings, and we have the contact. So all these are starting from mental fabrications, right? And next. Yeah, so can we control mental fabrications? Can I say, I want to experience only one thing. I don't want to experience other things. Also cannot, right? No, sometimes maybe there's a van or lorry drive outside your house very loud. And you have to hear that, no choice. Yeah. Okay, then consciousness is not self. So consciousness in is basically your awareness, your eye, your nose, tongue, body, mind, right? Eye consciousness, whatever you see, hear, smell, think, taste, and touch. That awareness, again, that is at the latitude level. There's also an altitudinal consciousness, different depths of consciousness, like in Abhidhamma terminology, or something in the suttas, we talk about different stations of consciousness. Abhidhamma is like 80 or 90 over kinds of consciousness, different depths, different level. A person without concentration, or let's say if you do not do concentration, you have a certain kind of consciousness. If you produce bad thoughts, you have the mind downgrade to another kind of consciousness. And if you do good deeds, have good thoughts, and your mind upgrade to another kinds of consciousness. Yeah, so total, there are like 80, 90 over kinds of consciousness mentioned in the Abhidhamma. So a person practice concentration, meditation, they have a different mood altogether, different emotion, different kinds of consciousness. Yeah, so then the Buddha mentioned consciousness is not self. You cannot tell your awareness to have this quality forever. Yeah, so basically, these are the 5 clinging aggregates. So why is there a need to talk about this topic? Because most people will associate whatever they experience as my experience. And whatever you think it's yours, like then you start to think my body, my property, my clothes, my food, my shelter, yeah? And whatever you use, my things. So there's an ego arise, yeah, due to the clinging and attachment, ego arise and becomes mine or part of me. So the idea of this reflection is the objective is to reduce desire. It's not to have like an absolute answer whether there's a self or no self. You get what I mean? Okay, the objective is to reduce craving in line with the Four Noble Truths. Yeah, that's the reflection. It's not about using like very empirical manner to get an answer of a self or not self. So these are the scientists that are doing it. They are trying to find the smallest particles, smallest atom, or maybe some transhumanism method. They want to upload consciousness into the computer or AI, right? So these are maybe scientific kind of experiments, right? But what we're doing is talking about reduce this sense of selfishness, the sense of selfishness, sense of ego. Yeah, we're trying to use this kind of contemplation to reduce that. So if a person believes in not self, but still very proud, very egoistic, very selfish, then is that person practicing correctly? What do you all think? He's using the correct words of not self. He believes, or he or she believes not self. And they can even preach not self or non-self. Right, but if the end product still a lot of greed, a lot of ego and selfishness, then defeats the purpose. So there's like, I think it's a Zen saying, when a person points to the moon, they look at the finger, and they're not looking at the moon. Right? So the mind is looking at the labels, but not looking at the answer, or not looking at the main points that Buddha is talking about. Okay, so we're moving to the next slide. Oh, now it's 9 o'clock already. Okay, so I'll end here. Lots of food for thought. Next few slides are more analysis, actually, more or less what I've covered, actually. Yeah? Okay, so any questions on the ground or on the comments on Facebook?
Bante can give some example of mental fabrications. That's Sankara, right?
Yeah, Sankara.
Refers to what actually?
Okay, basically whatever you experience, at the moment it appears, that appearing is mental formation, it forms. So I always like to do this experiment. You point your finger up, yeah, point your finger up, and then you point, where is your attention now? Every moment, try to keep track of your attention. What are you paying attention to every moment? Right, so it's always moving. So that new contact that new formation, yeah, that is mental formation. Every thought being generated, that is also mental formation within the mind door.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bante, for number one, the form, is it, does it mean it's a human form, animal form?
Yeah, okay, so the form referring here defined as the four elements, earth, fire, wind, water. Yeah, so earth, any hard and soft sensations when we do in our meditation. It can also mean the solid parts of our body, your hair, nails, teeth, skin, the bones, organs, so on and so forth. Anything hard. Fire is the temperature, heat, hot and cold. Wind, any movement, yeah, any air, any gas. Water, moist or dry, and the liquid properties, and sweat, tears, saliva, or fluids in the body. So all these are the four elements. So it can be internal and external. So even if you look at the screen here, the screen doesn't have hair, nails, teeth, bone, whatever. So it's also made of four elements. Anything that is hard and soft as earth element. Yeah, Terence. Yeah.
Bante, you see, how many percent of our how we live now is because of our old sankharas or old your past life habits or past life what do you call that sankhara?
Yeah, almost everything. Almost everything. And the new karmas is basically our reaction to those stimuli, all those contacts.
Mm.
So in our meditation, we always talk about treat everything as karma, yeah? Good or bad, pleasant or unpleasant experiences, any feelings, all these are all karmas ripening. So the Buddhist point of view is karma cannot be totally eliminated. Yeah, so he tried this torturing ascetic practices for 6 years. He starved, he does lots of other things. And about the verge of death, still cannot destroy all the karmas. Because every moment we need to experience things. Okay, any other question?
Bante, sorry, I still can you explain the difference between mental fabrication and consciousness? To me, it's
Okay.
the same thing, isn't it?
Yeah, consciousness is the moment that you are aware. Karmic formation is one step before awareness. The process of that running to that new attention.
Okay, but this consciousness has the six senses. It's based on the six senses, man.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Whereas
So
your mental fabrication is not.
karmic form, mental or karmic formation is basically whatever you see, hear, smell, think, taste, and touch need to be cognized by the mind. Yeah, so basically what we see on the screen, depending on your eye organ, the form, squarish screen or rectangular screen you have, or all the colors and pictures, external form, then eye consciousness arrives.
What about intuition? Does intuition falls under mental fabrication?
Yeah, intuition means it's a bit like a guess, right? Is that your definition? Your inner kind of guesswork?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that constitutes thinking. So that's mind or so depending on human body. So we have brain organ. Then depending on ideas formed by our sort of brain, then mind door arises. If a person is born in other realms, they do not know what kind of mind or mind organ they use. So that arising of that consciousness is mental formation. So if you are using ear consciousness, you're hearing what I'm saying, that knowing of that sound, yeah, that arising is caused by mental formation. Then your ear can pick up, then your mind can process. Okay, very hard to digest. This one needs some time to investigate. So it's part of investigation. Yeah. Probably the sharper one's mindfulness, then one can even detect the arising and passing of all the 5 aggregates. So at the meantime, it doesn't matter if a person cannot catch the arising and passing of all 5 aggregates. Whatever you can detect and you can able to reflect and let go, that's the main point.
So Bante, in a way, consciousness should happen before the mental formation, right? Mental fabrication, because the ear consciousness, the eye consciousness, the stimuli is there, the perception is there, feelings arise, and then there's the mental formation. The consciousness should be should happen before all these other things happen. Is that right?
Not really. No, we talked about dependent origination before. The sankhara comes first. Yeah, mental formation comes first, or the karmic formation comes first before consciousness. So this driving force that makes you aware of that thing. Like right now, we cannot be aware of the same thing at the same time. Like how many participants here? 5, 10, 13, yeah? 13 participants here. You cannot be having the same experience. You cannot be paying attention to the same thing because that karmic formation wants you to experience a certain thing in a certain direction or a certain area of attention, right? So that is everyone's different karma. Okay, anyone else? So if you cannot catch ING, never mind. Treat the 5 aggregates as 5 in 1. Treat it as 5 in 1 first. Because they are so fast, so you just treat 5 in 1. And because the whole idea is the 5 aggregate comes within before craving, according to dependent origination. And this feeling is the factor right before craving. So the 5 aggregates actually cover all these factors before craving arises. So you just treat any experience as 5 in 1 first.
Okay, thank you. But
Okay.
five aggregates
may-
plus mine, isn't it? There should be 6 sense doors, right?
maybe as
Yeah,
a
6 sense doors, yeah. So when you see something, 5 aggregates is there. When you hear something, 5 aggregates also there. When you touch something, yeah, you touch your face, 5 aggregates also there. Yeah, the skin is it subtle, rough, smooth, all these are 5 aggregates.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, no problem. Anyone else? I say it's deep topic, so need some time to digest.
I think we need to rerun the dependent origination again. All forgotten already.
Never mind, you treat it 5 in 1 first, yeah? Yeah. Okay, if there's no questions, Terence, comments on Facebook, and you know, okay, then you have your 5-minute break to digest, to your stretching, go to toilet, whatever, and we come back for the guided meditation session. So it's 9:16 now, so 9:21. See you back here. Okay, it's still 9:20. Okay, 9:21. Still waiting for the rest to slowly stream in and turn up. Okay, so I assume the rest still not back. Wait for Teresa. So anyone has digestion issues? So later on in the guided session, I'll try to re-emphasize on the 5 aggregates, all the while the routine can incorporate this 5 aggregates, yeah? And the contemplation of this non-self. Okay, I guess everyone's back. Okay, we can start the guided session. Make sure everyone's seated comfortably. Make sure your back is upright, body relaxed. Okay, and we start off with the first routine. Think of the impurities of the body. So we're going to visualize the hairs. Yeah, hairs on the head, hairs on the body. And we are starting to have thoughts of loving kindness. Yeah, wish all the hairs well and happy. From head to toe. So every time you think of a new area of hair, that is a new contact. Yeah, every time you're visualizing with your mind, new mind or new formation. And the mind, naturally, with defilement, will have greed or anger. So we have loving kindness first to soften up the mind, to reduce this aversion. So every time you think of a new patch of hair, well and happy, new patch of hair, well and happy. So you do this from head to toe. And once you have wished all the hairs well and happy, then introduce the thoughts of impermanence. And all these hairs go through birth, aging, sickness and passing away. And we think of the hairs growing and falling, many, many cycles. And the more the merrier. No need to over-imagine how you wash your hair, how you go to the hair salon. Yeah, no need. Just hairs growing and falling. And the sign that you are doing it correctly, if there's detachment, and we talk about the 7 factors of enlightenment earlier. If we keep on thinking of impermanence correctly, and if there's detachment, then there should be, symptoms of inner joy or peace. That means you're on the right track, on the path leading to the end of suffering. But if the more you meditate, the more stressful, and the more anxiety, more stress, more tension, then something is wrong. And the more you see the hairs growing and falling, then you can also reflect on this subject of not self. Are these hairs truly you, truly self? Are the hairs you, or is this sense of I separate, something else? Is the sense of I, or is ego, or is selfishness, is it constantly there, or can it be diminished or strengthened? What are the properties of this self? So this is just a side note here, and focus on observing impermanence. And now thinking of the next part of the body and visualizing the nails. And we are wishing all the nails well and happy. Fingernails and toenails, may they be well and happy. And all these nails go through birth, aging, sickness, and passing away. So you think of the nails growing and falling many, many times. And along the way, we can ask ourselves, are these nails truly self? And the more you think of impermanence, does this ego reduce or does it increase? Now, where does this ego come from? Where does this I come from? And the more you detach, you're actually ending these formations. So the more you let go, you get further, deeper down into the original state of mind. It is only enlightened person are totally free from this greed and hatred, then they can totally see the origin point and the starting point of this arising of greed, arising of formations, and the passing. So at this point of time, if you just see a portion, just partial process, that's fine. Just keep observing and detaching. So you need interest and enthusiasm to investigate. So give you more food for thought, more variety. Okay, and the next part of the body, we are going to visualize the teeth, and we are wishing all the teeth well and happy, all the upper rows of teeth well and happy, and all the lower rows of teeth, may they be well and happy. And when we have new contact, we can also observe, does this attachment increase? Okay, and all these teeth go through birth, aging, sickness, and passing away. So you just think of the wear and tear of the teeth, bone cells growing and falling, many, many cycles. So the teeth that you imagine in your mind and your actual teeth may be very different altogether, yeah? So this is a mental image, mental formations. It's a kind of perception. Whatever you have been, whatever memories you have of your teeth, it may be real or not real, or some images elsewhere, and you superimpose it to make it look like your teeth. And it's perception. all these things, they also subject to change, not just the visual image changing, but also other things changing. Your feelings towards the teeth change, the perception of the teeth also change. Does it remain the same shape when you think of it growing and falling? So the consciousness towards your teeth also change. Maybe before that, you may think, oh, teeth change or teeth decay. Go and see the dentist, worry for your teeth. And then the more you think of impermanence, you let go, then you can accept. Teeth change. Consciousness also change. And the mood of the mind changes. And you can ask, are these teeth truly you, truly self? Or all these aspects of the aggregates? Are they the self? Is the self inside or outside the five aggregates? Okay, and the next part of the body, we are visualizing skin, and we are wishing all the skin well and happy from head to toe. Every time we think of a new patch of skin, then we wish it well and happy. And all the skin are subject to birth, aging, sickness, and passing away. Skin keep growing and falling off, growing and falling off many, many cycles. even the image that you conjure, yeah, do you have total control of that image? And we can ask ourselves, are this skin truly self? Or the perception of the skin and the mental image, or whatever kind of image we think we have of the skin, are they truly yours? Are they truly you? Can you tell the skin not to go through birth and death? And we are moving to the next phase of meditation, which is non-visual. Yeah, non-visual meditation. So we are using sense of feel, a bit like sense of touch, and we're just going to wish may all beings in front well and happy. So just feel all the sensation in front, and we wish them well and happy. And we come back to ourselves, and we wish may all beings behind well and happy. And we come back to ourselves, and we wish may all beings on the left well and happy. So when you extend your attention, actually you are generating some formations, exerting some formations unintentionally. Hopefully you can trace the direction of this formations, where's its source. And you come back to yourself, and we wish may all beings on the right well and happy. And we come back to ourselves. Now we wish may all beings above well and happy. And we come back to ourselves. And we wish may all beings below well and happy. And we come back to ourselves. And this time around, we're just going to feel the sensations of the entire body from head to toe, including the insides of the body. And we wish all the sensations well and happy. So these sensations are the four elements: earth, fire, wind, water. Earth being hard and soft sensations, fire warm and cold, wind fast, slow movements, and water moist and dry. So whatever sensation appears, we just wish it well and happy. And the whole idea of this observation is not to control these elements. And we don't deliberately generate or create those elements. Treat all the sensations as passerby, and it arises naturally by itself. As long as there's something arising, just wish it well and happy. So as long as we maintain this frame of mind and let things appear by itself, the mind should be more carefree. But if you start to think that, oh, these elements are mine, you want to control, you're a control freak, then you start to have this tension, stress. So in this training routine, we are internalizing this philosophy of non-controlling. Once we are familiarized, then we sort of extend in our daily life. Yeah, so if we cannot even make peace within this body, then we can forget about all the other big projects we're doing. This is the same attitude, same mental posture. We deal with the body, same with dealing with any kind of contact, the things you use, the people around us, what kind of treatment we treat other people, and how we handle scenarios. So we start with small area within the body. Sometimes it's not easy to just not control, so we need some tools to assist us, and when using loving kindness as a tool to remind ourselves to make peace with this reality. Things form by themselves, we just make friends, don't interfere. And next we are expanding the boundaries, trying to tackle a larger area. We're going to reach all beings in all directions. May they be well and happy. And so again, no need to control, and just a gentle wish on beings, all directions. So you start to control and push this attention, then the suffering. So just gentle wish wherever your attention wants to encompass, whatever you can detect, whatever sensation, just wish it well and happy. So the mind is non-self. You can have total control where you want to stretch your mind, how far you stretch your mind. Okay, and we are going to maintain this boundless loving kindness, standing, sitting, walking or lying down, making peace with every sense contact, and not controlling, no coercion. And with that in mind, we can gently open our eyes. Okay, it's 10 o'clock, but meditation is not restricted to this half an hour or so sitting. It's a whole day affair. Yeah, maintaining this non-clinging in all activities. Okay, any questions or problems? No, everyone okay, then we can conclude. Yeah, dedicate merits. Akasata Chapumata Devanaga Mahitika Punyantang Anumoditva Chirang Rakhantu Lokasasana Etavata Jamihi Sapada Punya Sapada Sabe Deva Sabe Puta Sabe Sata Numodatu Sabha Sapati Siddhya. Transference of merits to departed. Idam vinyatina hotu sukita hotu nyatayo. Idam vinyatina hotu sukita hotu nyatayo. Idam vinyatina hotu sukita hotu nyatayo. And aspiration. Imina punya kamena ame bala samagamo. Sata samagamo hotu yavani bala patiya. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, right. Any announcements from Terence? No, okay. If not, good night and see you next week.
Thank you, Bante.
Okay, no
Good night.
problem.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Good night.